we should be expecting truly artificially generally intelligent systems capable of performing any intellectual task that a human can within the next year or two.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Automated Lawyer Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Schnurbush, and I'm here flying solo today. John is out of town for this week. So I was going to jump on today and give you guys a just kind of an update on what's been going on, a past couple things that have been going on, and kind of bring you up to speed on some things we talked about at the recent Maximum Lawyer Mastermind in Scottsdale. I was so kindly invited by the Maximum Lawyer Guild to speak there on AI and automation, and learned a lot of interesting things while getting ready for that presentation. Just other ancillary pieces that you know a little about, but just getting the chance to dive deep and explain some things to other people was a fun opportunity. It's just there's so much going on right now that is just blowing my mind, and I really want you guys to know about it. So, first of all, I went to Scottsdale, Arizona last week. Was it last week? Yeah, it was last week. And like I said, I was invited to speak on automation AI to the Maximum Lawyer Mastermind group there, and I kind of broke the topic into two major categories. One being just automation in general, and you guys have, if you're a listener of the show, you've heard us talk about this stuff a whole lot. But I wanted to kind of start from the basics. So I spent some time talking about the importance of data structure and Airtable, not specifically Airtable, but how it can enable good data modeling and what that has to do with automation. And then, of course, I talk too long and like to ramble because this stuff gets me very excited, and didn't have enough time to go through all of the AI stuff that I wanted to, but we did get to cover some of the most interesting, or what I believe to be some of the most interesting stuff. And so I wanted to go through that today on today's episode. And most of it is just, it's shocking. It is, what's the right word? It's a little disturbing in a way. It's just remarkable how far we've come in such a short period of time. And it's a little spooky. I played a lot of, sci-fi style video games, growing up. One of my favorite games of all time is called Mass Effect. If you've ever played Mass Effect, you'll know exactly why this is, interesting and relevant to our times. But, I loved the game. It was basically a sci-fi, space exploration game where you get to make choices throughout the game that have lasting impacts. Like you could, accidentally kill off members of your party and they don't come back. Or if you play the game a little differently, maybe you get to keep them all the way through the 3-game saga. And one of the characters is an artificially intelligent robot. And what's so interesting and compelling about the game is the dialogue. You end up spending, as you're playing through the game, you end up spending hours just talking to the other characters in the game at different stages throughout the story. And they'll each provide their own commentary on what's going on, and you'll get into these interesting discussions. And you got into a lot of really interesting kind of philosophical, psychological debates and discussions with the AI robot character about what it means to be a human, and what does it mean to be a machine, and at what point does a person become a machine if you start replacing body parts, and all kinds of very interesting AI philosophical questions that you would go through. So for a long time, I've been just kind of fascinated with the concept of artificial intelligence, and for a whole lot of reasons. I made a post a couple of weeks ago in the Facebook group that was a little dorky, but perhaps overly romantic. But I genuinely see AI as not just a likely supplement to humanity. I'm not that worried about like extermination. I know some people are, but it's not really a major concern of mine. I not only do I see it as a major supplement to us as a species, and this is going to get a little bit, woo-woo for a minute, but I see artificial intelligence as our descendant, our greatest, possibly our greatest creation, in that we are essentially creating that which has the capacity to outlive us as a species. No matter what happens to us, if we can develop a system like this, we could propagate throughout the galaxy. Even if we can't, you know, ever develop faster than light travel, and this is getting real sci-fi. But even if we can't travel the stars ourselves because our human bodies just aren't capable of it, or the technology is not possible, it's totally possible that an artificially intelligent machine could. And at what point do you get into, conscious machines? And anyway, so that's kind of a lot of that stuff is where I get a deep fascination around this area. And what's really spooky about it is how close we are to what I thought growing up was just sci-fi. If you've watched the movie I, Robot with Will Smith, it's spooky how close to that we are, and in some areas maybe are surpassing it already, which is just weird. And I'll give you some examples. So one of the pieces that I studied in just background reading that I've been interested in for a while and been working on this paper for a while. It's several hundred pages, but took a lot of the insights from it to really work on, having something really interesting to show to the group in this area, because there's a lot of interesting charts and graphs and models and just insight that I can't provide because I'm not in the industry. I'm not building these tools. I'm using them, but I'm not the one building the AI models and, charting the amount of compute that goes in and stuff like that. That's just not what I do. So it's very interesting to get a perspective of someone that does. And Leopold Aschenbrenner was a former OpenAI top researcher. He was part of the ouster when Sam Altman was temporarily evicted or deposed from his CEO position at OpenAI last year. You may remember if you followed it all, there was an exodus of a whole bunch of top AI researchers and specifically safety and security people who at the time believed that Sam Altman as CEO of OpenAI was just not taking safety and security, the risk of kind of a apocalyptic outcome, seriously enough. That was kind of their role. They were in what was called the majority of the people that left were part of what was called the super alignment division, which is basically the field of study involved in making sure that AI doesn't destroy us all and that its values are aligned with those of humanity. So obviously very important. But he wrote this paper that was ultimately published or completed in June of 2024. So at this point, it's actually aging, but it's 6.5, 7 months old, which in this world is a lifetime, but still very interesting. One of the I might be able to show, let me see if I can actually show one of the pieces. I'll have to mess with the settings differently. This is a different recording system, but one of the graphs that he showed was just the competency of the models as you scale up compute. And not just compute, but as we've also seen improvements in so-called algorithmic efficiency, in other words, the capability of the algorithms that actually run these models, and the scale up in what he's called unhobbling gains, or gains to model performance that have nothing to do with training, but everything to do with what you equip them with. So things like tool use, like the ability to read PDFs, the ability to run code, the ability to run math and calculate things, the ability to use integrations and things like that when taken together, all together, can actually radically improve the capabilities and output of these models. And what was interesting is in the paper, he shows a almost straight line graph since 2018, where for every order of magnitude in increased compute, so the amount of, computational power, energy, that we're throwing at these things, and the amount of data that we're throwing at these things in training them, as we scale them up by each order of magnitude, if you plot it out, it follows essentially a straight line, that the performance of the model increases in basically a straight line as you increase the compute and data input at about an order of magnitude. So about a 10x each time in compute and data and so on will produce a pretty reliable increase in the performance of the models. And back in 2018, 2019, one of the things Aschenbrenner talks about is that we had GPT-2, which was barely understandable. Like, it couldn't even form a coherent sentence. Like, it was at like preschool level. Like, it might string together a couple of words that were relevant to the prompt you typed in, but like that was it. That was all that language models could do. And by 2021, I think they launched GPT-3, which now we're talking elementary school capability, where we could form like basic, marketing spiels that were not very good in response to a prompt that was maybe a paragraph or two. GPT 3.5 came out, I believe it was in early 2020, mid 2022 to late 2022. ChatGPT was originally built on 3.5 with some kind of polish and refinement for a conversational experience. And that was only November of 2022. That was like barely over 2 years ago that the world was hit by, ChatGPT on GPT 3.5, which at the time, based on kind of its reasoning capabilities and its performance on benchmarks, was about the intelligence of like an elementary school kid. So, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. Not nothing to be super, super impressed yet. And then in 2023, GPT-4 came out, and this is where everything started to get real spooky, right? Because this is where you started seeing the like 90th percentile performance on the uniform bar exam. This is where you started seeing like 98th percentile performance on SATs. This is where you started seeing like perfect scores on high school AP tests of all different types across all different knowledge domains, right? Now, these aren't the hardest tests, right? These are generally testing fairly basic skills, but, Aschenbrenner in his paper kind of pegs this as like the smart high school level, which is kind of where we were at the time he was writing the paper. Because in June of 24, you remember, this is before reasoning models came out. This is before O1, this is before chain of thought reasoning, this is before O3. This is when the best that models could do was kind of address these kind of high school level performance issues. And that was just in 2023 through early 24, right? And we've seen kind of radical improvements in the performance benchmarks, even within the past several months, right? So O1 preview was announced in the middle of 24, right? I think it was like May or June or something. And this is when they were like, all right, we've come out with chain of thought reasoning. Now models aren't going to give you an instantaneous response. They're going to think out their reasoning steps before they respond to you. It's going to allow them to run different chains of thought in parallel, produce the most likely correct response after thinking about it for a while, and then give you an answer, right? So this was one of those unhobbling gains that Aschenbrenner was talking about. They didn't do anything to change the underlying model training. All they did was give it the ability to reason in chain of thought, right? And it radically improved its output. I mean, we're talking about, being able to solve complex reasoning problems with the advent of O1 preview. And then we quickly saw O1, the full O1 model get released. That was in December of this year, so like about a month ago. And the full O1 model is the one that they were running these startling reasoning performance results on last year. But what was wild is that at the time they dropped O1 publicly, this is part of that 12 days of shipments, and we've already talked a little bit about this, but they announced and started showing some preliminary results of O3. You remember they skipped O2 because of the trademark issue. And all this stuff Aschenbrenner wasn't even aware of yet because his paper was a little bit beforehand. And, in O3 is where we started seeing these human surpassing benchmarks like the ARC-AGI test where, O3 on a high tune was passing it at an 87.5%, where humans were performing equivalently at about an 85%. So now it wasn't declared to be AGI by ArcAGI because they were like, well, there's still some things that it can't do that humans find really easy. And, our definition of AGI requires that, or artificial general intelligence, the ability of a machine system to be able to perform any task a human can. They said our definition is that it requires it to be able to perform any task a human can. So you'll know that AGI is here, they said, when we can't come up with tasks anymore that the model or the machine cannot do as well as a human. And we're not there yet, they said. So they're working on ArcAGI version 2 now that apparently O3 only performs in the 40th percentile on, which is still remarkable, but obviously way below kind of the level that we would need for it to be genuinely useful on those kinds of tasks. And remember, the thing about the ArcAGI test, I think I've talked about this before, is that what it's testing is the ability of the model to adapt to tasks and skills that were not part of the training set. Right? It has never done these things before. It has no idea. It has never seen how to solve these kinds of problems before. They're totally and genuinely new. Often, some of them involve things like spatial reasoning and complex puzzle solving that were just not part of its training data because that's part of the test. They know it wasn't part of the training data, so they produce stuff that's specifically not in there as a way of testing its ability to learn, right? And that's, at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is improve its ability to learn, test that ability, and because that's kind of a critical component of true intelligence, is the ability to learn new things and adapt to novel problems when they're presented to you. And at least on the initial test, we're seeing an AI model, O3 now, that can do that in some domains better than a human can, right? So this is weird. This is really spooky. And Aschenbrenner makes it even more spooky in his paper when he talks about what are the implications if we see, we don't even, one of the points he makes is we don't even need AGI. We don't even need a general intelligence that can do anything a human can. All we really need is an AI that can perform automated AI research. Like if you could build a single purpose AI model and that's all it could do was AI research at a superhuman level, or at least at a human level, his argument in the paper is that theoretically it should be able to recursively and iteratively improve upon itself indefinitely at the pace of however quickly an AI model can think and process, which presumably is pretty damn fast. So his argument is that if we see a machine capable of doing AI research within the next couple of years, and it's important to note that under his projections, just following the straight line on the graph of additional compute, additional data, and so on, if you just follow the straight line on the graph until 2027, he says that's probably when we're about going to hit artificial general intelligence. Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, OpenAI's largest competitor, recently has been going on a speaking circuit and wrote a big essay that he dropped last week where he said, yeah, actually, I think it's probably going to be about 2026 that we're going to start seeing genuinely superhuman AI systems emerging. And, if you follow kind of the rapid growth between GPT-4 and O3, between the time that Aschenbrenner's paper dropped and today, I would say that Aschenbrenner's probably I would agree, I think he's probably a little conservative on the 2027 benchmark. We're probably going to hit it something like it sooner than that. So this is some of the stuff that I was talking about at Scottsdale, is just to kind of be ready to the extent that you can for this world that's coming. And I think the way that we get ready for this is by trying to learn about it and integrate as much of it today as we can, and not letting those pieces surprise you. Just know that it's coming. Start thinking now about how you could implement these kind of technologies into your practice if and when you see it, so that you'll be ready to say, hey, now that the tools are ready, they're at the level we need them, maybe we can start evaluating getting those things in. But let's pull this thread a little bit further. So when we're talking about AGI, when we're talking about the ability of machines to perform automated AI research, what Aschenbrenner in his paper says is the implication is stark. The implication is that we could have a machine that advances in intelligence faster than we can comprehend, and that we have a true ASI, or artificial superintelligence, a machine that is smarter than any human on Earth in a very short period of time. And I know this sounds like complete sci-fi. It sounds like sci-fi. It's weird, the words coming out of my mouth, but like, we now have top researchers in the industry putting hard deadlines on what they expect to be the timelines of when we hit some of these benchmarks. And the one that I'm seeing coming up on several different places, from, Ash and Brenner's paper, from Dario Amodei, from OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. In January, this month, he wrote a reflections paper where he's kind of talked about the successes they had over the last couple of years at OpenAI. And one of the things he said in closing was that we feel at this point we have a clearly defined path to AGI. And he said this is not the main challenge that we're tackling anymore. We have turned our sights to artificial superintelligence. That has become the main focus of our company's mission. Because we feel like we've solved AGI. It's just a matter of executing a few more iterations on these models, dumping a bit more compute in, adding a few more tool use capabilities and integrations, and maybe some refinements on the algorithm. But basically, we're there, or going to be there pretty damn soon. So, between Sam, Amodei, Ash and Brenner, we're getting the same message that we should be expecting truly intelligent, artificially generally intelligent systems capable of performing any intellectual task that a human can within the next year or two. Okay? Year or two, we're going to see machines smarter and more capable than humans, than most humans. And then possibly within a couple of years after that, we'll see, we might start seeing machines smarter than anyone on Earth, solving problems in, complex problems in medicine, mathematics, science. Dario Amodei, who is taken as a very serious actor in this space, right? If my recollection is right, he used to be, check me on this, used to be affiliated with OpenAI, started Anthropic, was among the original co-founding team, if I'm not mistaken. Double check some of those. But the point being, they're very serious voices in this space. And yes, they have something to gain by kind of like promoting what they're doing, but at the same time, they're also the closest to it in this space. So if anybody's going to know exactly the capabilities of these things behind closed doors and how they're built and what we need to invest in them to make them better, it's going to be these people, right? And so I'm not, you can let your mind wander. Dario Amodei apparently made the claim that, depending on how these evolve over the next couple of years, it's conceivable that, and perhaps more than conceivable, he was making arguments that we'll be seeing groundbreaking advancements in healthcare, and that it could conceivably result in the doubling of human lifespans over the next couple of decades. Now that's a bold claim, but all this stuff is bold, crazy claims, and we've seen a lot of bold, crazy shit happening in the last couple of months, couple of years. So I'm going into this with eyes wide open and going into this with an open mind. And if that's what they're saying, then, we'll see. But in pursuit of this, so that's some of the stuff that we talked about at the presentation, is just where the technology is at and where it's likely to be going in the next couple of years. And then we worked on some practical applications as well. But I want to talk a little more about some other big announcements in this space. Stargate project. A lot of you probably heard about this already, but $500 billion investment over 4 years, combined operation between OpenAI, Oracle, a couple other companies, was lauded by the incoming presidency and the executive. Sam Altman gave a talk at the White House, and other OpenAI researchers on this, and how they believe that it's going to kind of unlock the data and compute limitations for the next stage of AI. That this is a $400 billion investment in gigantic data and compute systems that are, 500 billion, we're talking, what is it, $500 billion into what has got to be one of the largest scale infrastructure projects in American history, if not the largest. I don't know. I'd have to look at that piece of data. But that's a lot of money, right? We're talking about major investment here, and it's got a specific purpose, right? I mean, I've heard some commentators saying, for what does done look like? But to me, if you're asking someone like Sam Altman, I think done looks like artificial superintelligence. When we have a machine that can, theoretically solve incalculable problems. What does that mean? What does that look like? I have no freaking idea, right? And that's why it's spooky and weird, is that it could have just unrecognizable, unimaginable capability to reshape the economy, daily life. And it's hard to imagine what that even means, right? And I know we're a little woo-woo today, but I'm just going to keep going because this is one of my favorite things to talk about. So Stargate, major investment project to back and support what we're doing here. And part of it was out of a desire to keep this stuff in the United States, right? Because China is making some incredible advancements. We saw this new model, DeepSeek, announced and launched just a couple of weeks ago at a new level, adding chain of thought reasoning that now outperforms OpenAI o1, which is admittedly not the frontier model anymore. O3 is, but outperforming o1, which was the frontier model just a few months ago in reasoning and performance. And what's significant about it is not only is it performing at the same level, DeepSeek has open sourced it so that everybody can see the source code, everybody can see how this thing was built. And they're operating it and selling it at a cost of about 100th the price of OpenAI. So what is that going to mean? Does it have the same safety and security stuff as OpenAI? I kind of doubt it. But it's important to watch. And one of the points that Aschenbrenner makes in his paper is that the capability of these models over the next few years is going to be so dramatic that it's going to become a matter of national security. We're going to need to see chain of command installed over some of these machines and their capability. He was arguing that we need to see more government involvement and controls in dealing with these systems. Who knows? But that's kind of what we're looking at. So super weird, super wild. More big stuff. Yesterday, OpenAI announces the OpenAI operator. Oh, before I get to this, one other thing that Sam Altman announced in his January reflections paper is that he was expecting that to 2025 would be the year that we see the first agents, AI agents, so-called, quote, entering the workforce, where, his prediction is that we're going to see the first agents where you can give them a task and they'll be able to do it. They'll be able to go out on the web, execute whatever complicated task or goal you give them, and they'll break it down into pieces, figure out how to do it, pull in the resources they need, go to the websites they need, and do the thing that you ask them to do. Agents, right? And now everybody was kind of thinking, all right, well, maybe we're a couple months out. No, OpenAI Operator launched yesterday, January 23rd, only available on the Pro plan. It is a early stage AI agent that is not something that you have to hack together as a developer. It is just part of the ChatGPT platform if you have the Pro subscription. If you remember, I think this is the $200 a month subscription. So not a lot of people don't have it right now, but it's expected to make its way down to the teams and mass market plans in a very short period of time. And here's how it works. So basically what it does is it takes a screenshot of a browser. So it works on a virtual browser inside the window. So it basically opens a web browser inside of its little chat terminal, and it'll take a screenshot of whatever it's looking at. And then it uses chain of thought reasoning, the O3, O1 kind of running through the thought process of what am I looking at? What do I need to do next? And just kind of reasoning through how to approach that task, right? And what happens next based on the screenshot. So it reasons, takes an action, takes another screenshot, reasons, takes an action, takes another screenshot, reasons, takes another action, right? And that's it. I mean, that's basically what people do. And now computers can do it too. AI models can do it too, right? And that's what Operator does. So I read through the research paper on this. It has two kind of fundamental capability domains. One is computer use. So can it actually use your desktop computer, like opening files on your computer or opening apps and using those apps? That's the computer use functionality. And the other one is its kind of browser use functionality, okay? And so far, the benchmarks are that it's doing pretty well at browser use. Like on some tests, it's doing about 2/3 as well as a human would, an average human tasked with the same project. So about 2/3 as well. So if a human is benchmarking, I think the paper was showing if a human is benchmarking about 75%, these models are benchmarking at in the 50s on browser use, but it varies by task and by test. There were tests where the model was performing close to the 90th percentile on executing on, and some of these are even complex tasks, like log into my e-commerce platform and pull, the client data entries for a particular customer. Like, it can get that granular. So it can, the important thing to understand is it can work across any website or any app on your computer. Again, it's not perfect yet. Like, computer use was a lot less impressive. We're seeing but what was it? So we're seeing like 30 to 40 percentile performance on computer use. So a little bit lower, in some cases, significantly lower than performance on web browsing. But what is impressive about this is about a doubling of the performance that we were seeing under Claude 3.5, Sonnet, their computer use. So Anthropic released computer use on their AI model, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, like 3-4 months ago, or it wasn't quite that long, a few months ago. And so now OpenAI Operator has essentially doubled that computer use performance in the space of a couple months. Doubled the performance on that and dramatically improved the performance on browser use. So, I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. Now we have agents that can do complex things. So here's some of the demos that they showed in the research paper and on kind of their announcement video. One of them was planning a meal plan and ordering the appropriate groceries on Instacart, right? Fairly simple task, was able to execute that pretty reliably. Finding a grammar quiz online and correctly answering the quiz. Finding refund information on a shopping website and returning an expected refund balance. So would either pull that from your email or pull it from the website by logging in and getting you that information. One of them was just a question about combinations of polyomino or like domino tiles, like how many different combinations could you lay these in so that they would have a certain number of sides. And it like went to Wolfram Alpha and did all these computations and ultimately came back with an answer to the question. One was like updating a user license on a website where it wrote the updated user license, pulled the information from the old one off your website, went into the website development app, went to the right page to make the user license update, swapped out the text and saved it for you. So really, really impressive stuff already, right? One of them, again, I mentioned was finding a user order data out of an e-commerce platform and returning how much a user had spent, I believe it was, on a particular kind of product. Going online and downloading files. One of them was just downloading lecture files from a website into local storage on your computer. One of them was combining PDFs on your desktop. And these are all computer use ones. One of them was compressing images on desktop. So open an image file, compress it, save it back to your local storage. And one of them was just using Excel desktop to run calculations on company data and spreadsheets, right? So it was just getting the company data from the company Excel spreadsheet, opening it up on the desktop, doing some manipulations, calculations, and returning the answer in chat. So to me, this is mind blowing. Like we're now we're seeing a shift in AI from just being a passive like question response thing to now being able to go do stuff. And I think that this is only going to increase as we start to see more API integrations through tools like Anthropic's Model Context Protocol basically gives a uniform API programming system for allowing, and we've talked about APIs before, it's the application programming interface, the ability of software to talk to each other through data, send and receive data and actions. And the MCP, or the Model Context Protocol, is designed to create a universal language and a universal protocol for allowing these models to gain access to data, your data specifically, to make them useful. Because that, I think, has been one of the main limitations to people being able to fully realize the gains from AI at this point, is that it's hard to give them enough context. It's hard to give them, unless you're a developer, a no-code developer, and comfortable, creating your own GPTs and your own assistants, and plugging and finding ways to feed them data from your CRM or case management system or whatever. It's tricky right now. They don't just have the native ability to do that. yet. And so that, I think, has been the major limitation for a lot of people. They've heard all this hullabaloo and they're like, what? Well, why aren't I seeing all these advantages? And it's because right now it's a little bit siloed. It's a little bit hard to integrate these into your tools. You just have to be a little bit technical, right? Or know somebody who's a little technical to help you out with it. So I think a lot of the ability to use browsers and then also communicate directly through APIs is, I think, going to be just major development this year in those domains, where we're actually going to see some major watersheds in the ability of these AI systems to actually do stuff for you, rather than, just respond to your questions. They're going to be able to do stuff for you this year, which is absolutely wild. And so I want you to start thinking about, as these tools improve, and I'm going to talk for a few minutes toward the end about ways that we can use them today already, but keep an eye out for, what kinds of ways can we leverage these. I think this is going to be really powerful for small firms who don't have the budget to hire giant staffs, a giant staff to deal with, complex litigation, for example, or other issues. But if they're able to, wield a small army of AI agents, how do the power dynamics change? What does it mean if you're an individual that can knowledgeably manipulate and run a bunch of AI agents to accomplish tasks, especially in that arbitrage early period for the first few years as all this stuff before it becomes ubiquitous? What are those arbitrage opportunities for lawyers and others to be able to leverage these technologies in a really extreme way? So keep an eye on it. Other interesting things, other big news, January 30th, so a week from now, there's going to be a closed door meeting with the OpenAI head, Sam Altman, and the incoming presidency and executive branch. So what is this going to be about? The scuttlebutt in the community, or the speculation, it is admittedly speculation, but the speculation in the community, in the AI and tech community, is that they're going to be disclosing a truly startling AI model performance. We're expecting PhD level model capability to be announced to the presidency as a way of kind of presumably either priming government to respond, regulate, dealing with security issues. How are these tools going to be used, right? Because we've been, Sam Altman has been talking about this for like a year now, is that if GPT-4 was a smart high schooler, a GPT-5 is going to be, or the equivalent, as we continue to add reasoning capability and so on. We're going to be at PhD level, machine reasoning in a very short period of time. So many people are speculating this is going to be the subject of the closed door meeting, and that we expect kind of, some announcements to be made on that shortly thereafter. Other big news, O3 Mini, which is supposed to be more powerful and way cheaper than O1, is now going to be the free model that's available to the public. These are the reports that we're seeing online, that reasoning is now not going to be something you have to pay for. It's just complex reasoning in an AI system is just now something you can get for free, right? Or will be very, very soon. So very, very cool. So let's talk a little bit about application or applied AI for a minute. So these are some other takeaways from my talk in Scottsdale that I think hopefully you guys will enjoy or gain some value out of. So there's three main ways to use AI. One is in the chat window, and this is probably the one that most people are familiar with. Uploading documents that you want analyzed. Maybe you've got a brief from your opponent in a litigation case, and you want some ideas about how to respond. Help me understand their argument. Help me provide some responses. Give me some public policy arguments about why they're wrong. Analysis, response, that type of stuff is very, very powerful. Works best in reasoning models for reasons that are probably pretty obvious, that if you reason through complex things, you're going to get a better reasoning-based response. Lawyers, obviously, most of what we do is reasoning, right? So the ability to have a model do this at a high level is pretty powerful. So, if you're not able to, I don't remember if you're able to upload PDFs to O1 at this point. I think you are, but if your model's not letting you do it or something, in fact, you may have better performance if you copy paste the text, just the raw text into the model. because of the way they work, that you're probably going to get better performance reasoning over the context window. So if you want to get real good responses, real good answers, make sure to give it the raw text of whatever you're working with. If you're responding to a brief, if you're just trying to analyze this complicated set of statutes, use that this weekend or about a week ago. I was trying to understand how a particular kind of partition suit worked. There's a new statute that came out. It's long and cumbersome and irritating to read. So I copy pasted the whole thing into O1 and I said, analyze this very carefully. These are my basic facts. Analyze this statute very carefully. Provide me a step-by-step workflow on how I do this kind of partition action. Who do I need to notify? What are the steps? Where do I need to do everything? And give me a checklist, a step-by-step checklist. It thought for about, 25 seconds. And then it gave me a perfect step-by-step interpretation with verbatim citations to the sections of the statute that required certain things, and said, your case fit is this, and therefore it falls into subsection 5. Subsection 5 says this. Here's the language. This is what you need to do. Here's, workflow step number 3, whatever. Very, very powerful for that kind of thing, right? Analyzing complex regulations. Reasoning models, very, very good at this, right? Very, very helpful use case. Other things, GPT search at this point should probably have replaced Google search for you. You should probably not be Google searching anymore. You don't need to be. Just open ChatGPT in a 4.0 window that has search enabled. That's that little globe icon. And just ask it your question. It'll search the internet. If you want to force an internet response, you can either say search the web, or you can just click that little globe button and it'll always search the web. So most of the time you can use that very reliably in lieu of Google. Now, like if you need to find a particular company's website, maybe it makes sense to go directly through the browser. But, if you just want to answer a question like, what just happened in the news the other day, yesterday, or, everybody's talking about this in the news. Tell me what's going on. It'll search 12 websites and give you a summary of what's going on. Way, way, way more powerful than trying to Google answers to questions. I've also found it's really, really helpful for finding like quick snapshot answers to statutory questions. Like, I can't remember which statute it is that does this thing, and I can't remember the exact section. If you just like plain language question into ChatGPT with search enabled, if your state has, web-based statutes online, it'll find it and it'll pull the section pretty dang reliably, right? So it's very, very helpful for getting research started, or finding references to statutes, civil rules of procedure, ethics rules, just finding that information very quickly. Phenomenal at this. Writing Excel formulas, Airtable formulas, just anytime you need to write something that's like vaguely codey or syntaxy and you don't know that kind of stuff, very good for that. I used it to write our HTML email signature on one of our tools, because I think it's in missive because you need to use HTML to write a custom signature. And I didn't want to write. I had one that I'd written in HTML, but I was like, just write me a new one very quickly and make it look like this. I give it a screenshot of what I wanted it to look like, and it just immediately duplicated the signature screenshot that I'd given it in HTML code. I dropped it in, it worked perfectly, right? Things like that, very, very powerful. Another area, marketing planning. So if you're struggling with like, who do I need to be talking to in my branding and my marketing, figure out who it is, what kinds of cases or what kind of people it is that you like to work with, and then ask ChatGPT, especially the reasoning model at one, give me an avatar. You can even say, give me a couple of different avatar clients for this kind of case. Ideally, it's good to have one, but give me some avatar clients, figure out who your favorite is, and say, all right, well, give me a full avatar client breakdown on this person. Psychographic, biographic, what kind of marketing messages, what are their pain points? How do I need to speak to them in my marketing copy and my ad copy? Very, very powerful for this. Like, it will help you very carefully reason through, who you're trying to talk to, what they're likely worried about, what kind of messages you need to be using to speak to them. So it's just incredibly helpful for this kind of stuff. And I know I'm going really fast, but obviously I've been talking a long time, so I'm trying to get through this. And there's a lot of interesting things I want to tell you about. Notebook LM from Google, super powerful. It's going live for Google Workspace. Use it as a new core tool for Google Workspace. Notebook LM is this tool that Google made where you can basically upload PDFs, give it YouTube links, website links, raw text, whatever you want. You can share it with other people. You can create these notebooks where It's basically similar to a custom GPT. You're feeding it tons of external knowledge, but you can give it a lot more types of resources that it is allowed to access, like URLs and websites and various things. And then what it can do is like provide you these quick briefings, like here's a one-page summary of all these documents, or a multi-page summary. Here's a podcast with AI voices that is generated to teach you about these subjects with a click of a button that lasts 15 minutes to teach you about these various things or summarize it or whatever. And of course, you can share it with your team because now it's workspace, or will be very soon. I think it's February 5th. They're going to start rolling it out. So it's basically creating, if you want to upload your knowledge documents for your company's knowledge store, workflow processes, and allow people to just ask your Notebook LM chatbot, hey, how do we handle this workflow, and have it cite back to the resources. Boom, there you go. Or give you step-by-step guides. Like it can do all that for you now, which is absolutely wild. So wonderful, wonderful place to store that kind of information and give access to your team. And the thing that's neat about this is it's going to be free included in Workspace. So if you're already paying for like Google Workspace, you don't necessarily have to worry about, you may already have a ChatGPT team subscription, but it's a way of getting, an AI internal chatbot for your company with all your company data and knowledge and processes and workflows. And here's the software we use, and here's our, time off policy, and here's our whatever. You could dump all that in there and answer all kinds of company questions. So super, super cool. These are just a couple of the so-called first ways to use AI, the chatbot window stuff. Second way is, and the other two are going to be a lot faster, is in your existing tools. So look at tools like Filevine, Airtable, Lexis AI, Spellbook AI, Robin AI, MS Copilot, Gemini Workspace. So everybody's right now trying to integrate AI into their existing tools. And that's cool. That's fine. I think it's a stopgap. It's a temporary measure until we have integrated AI models, because having one model that can access all your tools is way, way, way more useful than having tons of separate models inside of each one of your tools, in my opinion. Or maybe even, maybe we'll see a hybrid where we'll see a singular model that can reach out to these tools, and then the internal models for each software will respond to the external model. It's hard to say, but look at a lot of these existing tools and what they're doing. We had some really interesting presentations from people at Filevine on what they're doing in terms of trying to create AI agents within legal to do stuff like, extract medical chronology information and stuff like that. Very, very interesting. Lexis AI, very powerful for research, getting briefs, getting kind of cited case law on issues, on legal questions that you might have. Robin AI, Spellbook AI for contract drafting. So baked into your word processor, basically adding AI systems into Google or into Word, which is, pretty cool, powerful stuff. And what's been interesting I have seen is that a lot of, like, you look at in the software development world, you have tools like Cursor, which have been revolutionary. I mean, for like, I use it in my own private development efforts on a couple of projects. And if you hook up your own API tokens from OpenAI and Anthropic and wherever, it's free, right? You only pay for the AI model usage that you incur, right? But other than that, it's free. Now you can pay for a subscription for it, but you don't have to. Whereas we have not quite seen this develop in the kind of word processing world, where with Cursor, you just you hit like Command K and like write me a new paragraph here, or edit this paragraph, or edit this block of code, or write a whole new code string here, or, replace all the instances of X with Y. And it can do that just by typing Command K, do this, and it will run through your entire code file, and you can make it run through your entire code base across several files, which is amazing, right? And we just haven't seen that yet in a significant way in word processing and just writing stuff. Lex.pages is kind of doing this in a cool way, but it's still new and still young and still developing a lot of features. It's not at the same level as Cursor yet in the dev space. And a lot of these legal specific ones are really expensive. So they might be good for bigger firms, but for like small solos, you might not want to incur a $200-$300 a month, another piece of $200 or $300 a month software unless you're going to get a lot of value out of it, right? So I think there's still some opportunity there for advancement in integrating models directly into word processors. But But you do have, those tools are still pretty cool, and they do have a lot of like legal databases backing them up, which I think is pretty cool and very helpful for us in our specific profession. The last way that you're going to interact with AI is through automated workflows, through Zapier and Make primarily. So look at, there's all kinds of things you can do. The best use cases that I have found are some of the simple things like writing Google replies to your Google reviews automatically and reposting those. But my favorite use cases involve things like extracting information from emails. So especially court emails for us, very process-driven law firm, where court emails drive a lot of it, like notices from the court, hey, letters of administration have been issued. Hey, you've got a deficiency on your account or you're on your case. You need some more stuff provided to us. Or, a hearing has been set. These kinds of things are ripe for extracting that information with ChatGPT or Claude. It's a little easier to do without code with ChatGPT. I've talked about it before, the step in the module, like extract structured data, I think is what it's called, or transform to structured data. This is how you're taking raw text and turning it into variables that you can map into later pieces of a workflow in Zapier or Make, right? So you're turning that text into like those variable bubbles, right? Which is super, super powerful because that's how you can define, what the time is on a hearing or what happened. So, you can get it to summarize what the court's email is about and turn that into a task or use that to trigger a phase change in your system or whatever. So extracting information from court emails inside of a workflow automation has been a really, really big value add in our firm. Other one, parsing inbound scanned mail. So a lot of people out there use Earth Class Mail or now it's called LegalZoom Virtual Mail. They scan all your mail automatically. So, and they have Zapier and Make, well, they don't have Make connectors. I wrote a Make connector. If you need the Make connector for LegalZoom or Earth Class Mail, let me know. Shoot me a DM on Facebook or something, and I'll drop the link. I can't remember if it's in the Tech Collective resources landing page or not. If it's not, I'll get it up there later. But they have these connectors, and one of the modules is like, new piece of mail came in or whatever, or fetch mail if you want to fetch all the mail that's in there at a certain point in time. And it has the PDFs, and you can pass those into Google Drive if you want automatically, or pass them into ChatGPT, and it OCR scans for you automatically. So you have all the OCR text from those PDFs, and you can just pass that in to ChatGPT and extract data out of that. So you can use that to figure out, all right, what case does this belong to? Where does it go? What's the follow-up task? Who does this get assigned to? So inbound mail parsing, super, super powerful. And then writing marketing content has been another major automated workflow power. If you give it comprehensive prompts, like here's what I write like, here's an example post, here's what I want to sound like. Here's the subject, here's the background information you need to know, here's a copy of the transcript that we're modifying or whatever. Using all that inside of automated workflows, you can write marketing content super, super fast, right? So these are some of the ways to use it automatically in a workflow today. Now, there's a lot of other stuff you can do if you want to get real hacky. Like you can create agents today, like feed in a text prompt through like, ALEXA or Google or Hey Siri or whatever, and have that run a prompt through Make that will then sort it into like, hey, if I said something about creating a calendar event, or if I said something about emailing somebody or creating a task in Airtable, you can have it do all that today. It's just more work to set it up. Whereas the stuff that's coming out is just, it works, right? It uses the browser, it uses instructions, it figures out how to do it on its own rather than working through API connections like through Make. But you can get real wild today. I've seen people do some real crazy stuff already, even with no code systems. So a couple of powerful ways to use AI today, coming up on too long already, so I'm gonna cut it for today. I appreciate you guys taking the time, if you've made it this far, to listen. Wild stuff is going on, guys. Models are, if they're not already, they're smart as you or will be as smart as you or smarter than you pretty damn soon, and it's not going to be long before they're also more capable than you. So what do we do in a world like that? It's a conversation for another episode. But AGI is coming, folks. Big investments in AI. Agents launched yesterday. A closed door meeting coming up, and some AI use cases that hopefully you'll get some value out of. get in there, start tinkering with it. So that's kind of my tip of the week too, is based on what we've talked about today, just kind of see if you can figure out how to implement some of these things. Dive into Zapier. Very simple stuff. I'll give you a direct example on that Google reply one. It's just new Google review, ChatGPT, feed in the Google review, post a reply. That can be a 3-step automation. Very, very easy. And if you get the prompts tight, you don't have to worry about the response. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And especially if you make sure to keep the threading the same each time, where you attach a thread ID to the ChatGPT step, it will run these Google review responses in an ongoing thread. So it will know how it responded to the last one so that it doesn't sound the same every damn time. Very easy to set up. Very easy to set up. If you want to add an extra step, you can have it dump into a Google Sheet or Airtable, which is how we had it set up for a while. So you can review it before the response goes out, and just click a different button and run the automation to set it back out to Google My Business. Very easy automation. So think through how you would set these up. Email-based ones, like I've said before, I start them with a Gmail search module, or if you're on MS Workspace, you could do an Outlook search module to kind of detect emails as they come in. Being very careful about how to structure those filter and search terms. Use ChatGPT if you're not sure how to refine that. But learn how to use that search booleans and syntax. So a couple of tips of the week. If you enjoyed this episode, find us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. If you want to take the conversation offline, join us in the Legal Tech Collective Facebook group, where we talk about this stuff all day, all the time. And that's it for this week, guys. Appreciate it. Until next time.